Welcome to the Chuck Shoot Podcast. So excited for my guest today. I know I say that every week, but this really is a guy that I've been a fan of for over 18 years. Used to follow him when he performed in this tiny little comedy club in Seattle. It was in the back of a Ramada hotel. It's this bar and lounge that on the weekends they turned it into Laughs Comedy Club. And I remember seeing him there practically weekly. And he would do like a 15-minute set that would feature for the headlining comedian. But he would have new material like every week. And that was before YouTube and all that stuff. So if I wanted to like see his comedy, I had to go see him live. He didn't have TV specials or anything like that out. So we'd go and follow him a lot. And I just watched him he was already hilarious, but he just kept getting better and better, it seemed like, and making me laugh so hard. And I watched a lot of comedy. And so, it's the more comedy you watch, the harder it is for comedians to make you laugh, the pickier you get. And he still, to this day, makes me laugh super hard at so many of the things he does, not just his stand-up, but his YouTube and Instagram videos and such. But yeah, he ended up moving to LA, and his career's just been on the skyrocket ever since. He's done TV shows, Chuck, Disaster Date, Californication, did the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot movie with Tina Fey, had a Comedy Central special called Goatface with Hassan Minaj from The Daily Show. And he also has his own stand-up special that you can watch for free online. It's called There's No Business Like Show Business. He's done like every famous podcast, including the Joe Rogan podcast, which is the most famous podcast I think there is. So very cool that he's taking the time to come on my little show. I really appreciate it. I think you guys will really enjoy his story, but also just he's funny even on this podcast. He can't not be funny. He's one of the best guests I've ever had, not just because of his credits, because he's just actually really funny guy. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and definitely check out all his social media. Yeah, let's go. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, man. Yes, it's an honor. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor for you, right? Okay, sure, yeah. Oh, I'll take that. Yeah. Thank you.
So people will hit me up to do their podcast quite a bit, like just random people from across the country, it's really nice to get those requests, but I'm usually busy and I don't I would just be busy doing podcasts my entire life if I did every single request from across the nation. But I've known you forever, and you've known me since I was 18.
Yeah.
So I think that's such a special case where I'm like, yeah, of course.
Really? So you get that many requests?
Yeah,
huh?
Like I got one today, I got one yesterday, and because everyone has a podcast now, and comedy is just sort of very popular. So you'll get like 1 year, 2 year comics starting a podcast, which is great. And some of my peers will do those. I just find that I don't know. There's power in saying no. There's only like 24 hours in a day, so I just don't want to get caught up in doing a million podcasts and I'm not doing anything myself,
So how do you politely declare? Because I'm assuming some of these people that are just starting out, I mean, you want to help them out, but like you said, you can't do podcasts all the time.
Yes, to a degree, like I do a cost to benefit analysis in my mind. I'm like, how many listeners are here? It's like 200 followers. It's, I don't need to do that. You know what I mean? But if they have like a huge following, be like, okay, yeah, then it makes sense. Yeah, not that you're an asshole. It's just sort of like things have to be mutually beneficial for both parties.
Right. No, thanks. Well, thanks for doing mine, because I don't have a huge following, but I'm hoping that to get there.
Yeah, it's sort of, so I have a rule to go by. It's either it's like, will it help me do what I want to do, or do I know this person, and is it like a friend or a favor? And I'm cool with either of those. What'd
you say once? I heard your quote was asking someone to do your podcast is the new like asking your friend to help you move.
Pretty much. I think there was like different elements of it back in the day. Like it was, or can you take me to the airport was the ask, or could you help me move? And then the can you help me read lines was the LA ask. And then instead of can you help me read lines, now it's can you do my podcast?
Gotcha. Well, thanks for doing this. But yeah, so let's start at the beginning with your story's kind of interesting. I mean, I think everybody's story is interesting, but yours especially. So I just learned this the other day. I didn't know this. Your dad moved to Seattle from was it from Afghanistan directly, or was he in the United States for something else? But he moved there sight unseen, right? He just saw it in a brochure and he moved there to work at Boeing.
Yeah. So, I mean, he came here for school. So he had been in the States for a while.
Okay.
First, he came to North Dakota and then Minnesota, or I'm flip-flopping him. It's either, so North Dakota and Minnesota were two schools he went to, one for mathematics and one for engineering. And when it came to
North Dakota?
Yeah, North Dakota State University.
And what year was this?
Like 70s? I don't know the exact year, but
okay.
Yeah, so, and then when he graduated, there were, the recruiters come around and Boeing was one of them, and they had a brochure of Seattle and they were hiring quite a bit, and he's never been there, but the Space Needle's on the front of the brochure, and it's like, sure, why not?
The Space Needle is cool. So, growing up with immigrant parents, like, because the old cliche is always like, when I was your age, I had to walk 5 miles in the snow to get to school. Like, did your parents have any of those kinds of stories about growing up in Afghanistan, about how lucky you have it here?
No, the thing is, like, I was watching this documentary on Afghanistan just yesterday or the day before. Like, I was at my uncle's house in San Diego, and my brother. It's called the Great Game, and you actually see it on YouTube. There's a part 1 and a part 2, and it's really interesting just how various countries have tried to like move into Afghanistan, and they all fail. So Afghanistan is very familiar with wartime. They're always fighting somebody, but they had 50 years of peace. And my parents just happened to fall in that window before they left for America. Like towards the end, it got a little dicey. Yeah. But they grew up very westernized. It was kind of on par with America, like the stuff that you got here in the States. They got there in Afghanistan. So it was kind of an idyllic life, the way they grew up.
So he just came over for school then, basically.
Yeah. So he came over to study and stuff like that.
Nice. And so then in terms of comedy, you started to kind of fall in love with the comedy with like The Simpsons, Conan O'Brien, like all that SNL, 90s SNL, like Adam Sandler, Phil Hartman, Farley.
Just like any other kid in America growing up on just consuming what any kid would, I'm just a kid growing up in the like Linwood, Washington, Mukilteo, and I'm like any other kid. And so I'm consuming The Simpsons, I'm consuming SNL, and yeah, it really informed my sensibilities.
And was it a specific moment where you're like, this is what I want to do, like be on SNL and stuff? Or what about like actual stand-up comics? Was there somebody that?
Yeah, that was, so, I mean, SNL and Simpsons were introduced to me very young.
Yeah.
I think, because my dad didn't listen to stand-up albums or anything. Stand-up, it might have been around, or I wonder if I would see it and just not even register with me. It had to have, but stand-up didn't really come on my radar until I was 17. And for my birthday, we were at a video store. To date myself. And I think the guy recommended Eddie Murphy's Delirious.
Love that.
So it was my birthday party. Me, my brother, my friends were watching Eddie Murphy's Delirious, and it was life changing. For like then and there, stand up became a thing for me, whereas before it didn't exist. But now I knew it took up space in my brain after seeing that, and that coupled with how do people get on SNL, seeing that they were either came through improv schools or they did stand up.
Yeah.
So that with me just seeing Delirious, that's why I leaned so heavy for stand-up.
Right. So then you wanted to perform stand-up at your high school talent show, but the school actually banned comedy. You said it was kind of like some Footloose type of shit. Like,
yeah.
Do you think were you the first person to try that? And are you the reason for that rule? Or have there been other people that had tried stand-up with bad results?
I don't know. I don't think a lot of kids try to do stand-up for the talent show because most people like hate public speaking and all that, but I was 17, but the reason they banned it is because even before stand-up, I always had a performer element to me. I would do sketches. I was in video productions. I would also do assemblies. I would like dance during the assemblies, and throughout the school year, I was doing these like little sketches and like skits during pep assemblies and stuff.
I didn't know.
When I remember I did this one. It was for Christmas time, this Christmas time pep assembly. And Conan used to do this thing where he would do a slideshow about some event that happened. And they were just like funny photoshopped
Oh,
this fake story. Yeah. So I love that. And I did one of those for like this crazy, I just ripped it off. I'm a kid, you know? So I just ripped it off and made it my own, and about some Christmas party with all the faculty and the principals and stuff. But it was approved, you know? So we had some funny Photoshop stuff. Like we had my drama teacher. We said it was getting pretty crazy. We just Photoshop Ricky Martin getting wax poured on his chest, but we put my drama teacher's face on it, just saying how crazy the night got and stuff. And everyone loved it. It was so fun and funny, and it had been approved, because you can't just like do shit rogue. That's when you get in trouble. But it got approved. But still, I heard some parents had a problem with it, and they complained to the principal. And the thing is, whenever you do comedy is so subjective. Yeah. That what may be approved could still ruffle the feathers of a more conservative parent. So that's why they didn't even want to deal with comedy at all. They just, for the talent show, they said no comedy, which I took great offense to. You know what I mean? Just like they don't even like to rule out an entire art form just because you don't want one phone call from a dumb parent.
Oh yeah, I could tell you a million stories about schools nowadays. Where I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on, but especially
so
with
like,
kids.
So it's just.
But then you organized your own comedy show, and you did like 30 minutes, which seems like a lot to me for someone who's starting out.
It's insane. Even like 18 years in, looking back, I'm like, Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But so one of the improv teachers.
That's the beauty of being naive is.
Yeah.
No one.
But you did it, right? And one of the improv teachers saw you, and she suggested you go on at Comedy Underground. So did you go to the open mic night at Comedy Underground? Is that your first time trying it?
Yeah, so I did. Her name was Pam Mann. I don't know where she is today. I have she's kind of like a comedy guardian angel, because I really wonder what my life would be like if she didn't teach this improv unit in drama class for 2 weeks. So, I was in high school drama, and then for 2 weeks, they brought Pam Mann in from Unexpected Productions, which is an improv. It's like Seattle's Groundlings, or it's just an improv theater in Pike Place Market. So she came and taught us for 2 weeks. And at the end of it, I don't know. No, actually, at the end of it, there was nothing. But I did the 30-minute stand-up thing where I organized my comedy night because they wouldn't allow us to do it for the talent show. So me and my buddy... We put on our own comedy night. We had to hire police because they tried to do everything to make us not do it, but we just jumped over every hurdle they put in front of us so that they couldn't. We just did everything.
Because it was at the school or something?
Yeah, it was at the school. They were like, oh, well, if it's after hours, well, if you do it, then it has to be after hours. And if it's after hours, you'll have to have a police officer on site in case it gets unruly. And like, this is such white suburbia. Nothing's going to happen. They just didn't want this to happen. So you found a policeman to do it? We hired a security police guy to do it, and it went great. We invited Pam to come watch the comedy night. So she saw us do improv, and then I did stand up at the end. And that's when she was like, "Hey, my friend does stand up at the Comedy Underground in Seattle. You should come. You should check it out." And she basically held my hand the first time to go to the Comedy Underground. So she was there with me. I watched the open mic. I signed up. I went up. I did like 5 minutes. And then I just continued to go without her. But it was just such a foreign world to me, especially when you're a kid. You're 17 or 18, and this is like this adult world. So her kind of shepherding me into it, at least for the introduction. And I don't know. Then I just kept going.
That's awesome. Yeah. So is there rules like that with kids and being, I mean, it's kind of a bar, isn't it?
It is. So I wasn't able to, for a while, until I was 18, I could only hang out by the front desk. And when it was my turn, then I could go on stage, but I couldn't hang out in the club. And I remember my first MC gig. I was MCing for this show at the Howard Johnson. I forget, maybe it was in Everett. So the Howard Johnson Hotel, it's like this dingy bar lounge area. And I'm 18, but I look like 12. So I go. I would have to sit on the stool by the door, and then go on stage between the acts.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I totally forgot about that phase of my comedy career where I had to hang out in the lobby before I could perform.
Well, yeah, I remember the first time I saw you was at Giggles, and then we came back the next week and we asked about you, and the guy was like, "Oh, he usually performs at Laughs," and I was like, "What the hell is that?" Apparently, there's a comedy club in a hotel in Bellevue, and it's similar thing in a hotel.
The Ramada Inn.
Yeah, and so and you were there like every week, but yeah, and then you ended up winning the Giggles Laugh Off at age 19, which made you the youngest person to ever do so. Do you remember like who you beat out at that point?
You know, these are true facts, and you say it like I'm in the Hall of Fame or something, but these credits mean nothing to anyone anywhere. You go, and don't get me wrong, you were 19 when you won the Giggles Laugh Off. Do you remember the Titans you were up against? What was your thought process going into the semifinals?
The youngest person to ever do that? That's an accomplishment. You don't think that's an accomplishment?
Sure, yeah. That was cool. I remember when it happened. Terry was kind of weird though, man. Like, remember Terry Taylor?
Yeah, well, there was a brief time where I was doing stand-up, and I remember I used to go to Comedy Underground, and the guy there was really cool. But one time I was like, oh, I'm going to try Giggles. And I went in there, and I go, hey, I want to sign up for the open mic. He's like, no, you can't do that. I was like, what? Like, he's like, you have to bring like 10 people. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I won't do it.
Yeah, he was a businessman, and there's nothing wrong with being a businessman, but I think sometimes he was too much of a businessman where it unraveled relationships or made relationships icy, or you don't need a nickel and dime that much, and especially when it comes to talent, you know?
Yeah.
Like unpaid talent, or even if we are getting paid, it's like not much.
Right.
Like, because I remember, I don't think he wanted me to win because I wasn't going to Giggles as much anymore because I lived in Woodinville with my parents all the way in the east side, and it's quite a drive.
Yeah.
And during the middle of the week, I'm going to school, so I could only perform on the weekends anyway. And Laughs was on the east side. It was 15 or 20 minutes away from my parents' house, and they would put me up every Friday and Saturday, and a lot of time they would put me up for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
So I would just get in where I fit in. They gave me a lot of stage time. It was closer to home. It was on the weekends. And I don't know, I think Terry sometimes would play like allegiances and favors, or, you know, like loyalty. If you perform at my club a lot, then I take care of you. But just, I'm going to school. I can't play these games, you know?
Right.
So I think he didn't want me to win because I wasn't a Giggles guy.
So how did they? Is it the crowd pick it though? Then how did you beat it?
The crowd picks it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the crowd picked it and I won. But I remember this. These are like little things you don't forget about. It sounds petty, but when you're coming up, these things stick out in your mind and you never really lose it. I remember they used to have these plaques or this framed thing that would say, it would show the winner of the Giggles Laugh Off, and it would be on the walls, and they would have all the years prior. And they stopped doing it when I won.
Really?
So like, I didn't have that up there. Yeah, that always bothered me.
Because I feel like wasn't Mitch Hedberg? Didn't he win one of those?
Oh, maybe, probably. I remember whoever won the semifinals was supposed to get 2 Sonics tickets.
Oh,
I forgot who they were playing. So I was supposed to get those, and maybe I didn't pick them up that night or something. And me and my brother were gonna go, but then Terry gave them to somebody else. It was like some other shady shit.
What?
Like Terry, like I love Terry overall. You know, I wouldn't be who I am without the stage that he had there for me. I built my chops there with the other clubs in Seattle, so I'm very grateful for that period of my life. But there are just little things, little outliers that I look back on and go, "That's funny."
Yeah, well, yeah, because you have a much different perspective now that you've been in the business longer. Do you still keep in touch?
I mean, the thing that matters most is stage time and those formative years. And to that, I owe a lot to Terry and Dave and Ron and Carl, you know, Dave and Angela over at Laughs, Carl and Ron over at Comedy Underground, and Terry Taylor over at Giggles. So, yeah, they were all important to me.
And do you still keep in touch with all the Seattle comics? Like, I mean, I had Andrew Rivers on my show. I've interviewed Justin Ruppel and those guys.
Yeah, I mean, especially the ones that are here in LA. just in the scene, you bounce into them. I'll see Jeff Dye or Brian Mood every now and then, or Andrew Slater or Lucas occasionally. So that Seattle bond doesn't leave you.
That's cool.
You may not see them as much as you did back in the day, but it's definitely a shorthand because you were in that scene together.
Yeah, I didn't know this. I thought I knew a lot about you, but I didn't know that you opened for, or you had a chance. You didn't actually do it, but you had a chance to open for Michael Buble on some of his local dates. Tell me about this story.
Yeah, man. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I actually did those dates. You know what I mean?
It would be a big audience, right?
Life is, and Bublé's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know the twists and turns, you'll kill yourself if you do what ifs. I'm not saying my biggest regret is not opening for Michael Buble, but I am just curious as to what that would have been.
Like whose idea was that?
You know, I think the genesis of that might have been Ron Reed over at the Comedy Underground. They probably wanted a comedian to open up for him. They probably called the comedy club and tried to pick their brain or get a recommendation for them. And I think Ron must have suggested me. And I wanted to do it, but I was in college, I'm studying engineering, and they want me to open for him, I think in Seattle and then in Portland. And it's just too far away. It's too much schoolwork. I couldn't do it. Logistics, and my parents wouldn't be very understanding of that. It was hard enough doing stand-up locally.
Mm-hmm.
So explain. I'm going to take days off of college to open for Michael Buble.
So explain that. I mean, I know the story obviously, but for the listeners, like why you went to UW and your degree was in engineering. Like why you picked engineering.
Yeah, so I did mechanical engineering just because there's only certain degrees my dad would pay for. And engineering was kind of like the bottom that I could do and still have them, because I wanted to do art stuff, and he said no to all of them. So I knew I had to do engineering. It was engineering or higher, but I just wanted to be out in 4 years.
Yeah.
And
did you ever think about just saying screw you, Dad, and just moving to LA and starting stand up right away?
No, because what's like, then it's like I have no family. Like I love my parents, I love, like we may not see eye to eye and stuff, but I think immigrant families, it's very hard to burn it all down. No matter how hard they are on you, the family unit is very strong. There isn't this individualism to that degree. It's like you respect your parents, you love your parents, even if they don't like what you're doing and all. So, and it would be such a hard life. I just moved to LA and then I'm disowned or something, and I'm just still trying to make money. It's not an easier path or anything.
Right. So, I mean, it was actually smart because then you were it actually gave you the opportunity to move to LA and do comedy on the side while you worked your engineering job at Boeing.
Yeah. I'm always a big proponent of giving yourself leverage. The romantic version is just packing up your car, moving to LA and not thinking about things, just going with your gut. But then you're doing a lot of shit just by necessity, or you need to make rent, and not because it's the right move for you personally and professionally. Even when I was coming up through the Seattle scene, I would get offers to do some Tribble Run or some gig in the tri-state areas or Montana. And I live with my parents. I didn't need money, and I was able to just do smart comedy in the city. And that's the type of comedy I wanted to do to begin with. If I were driving to Montana, nothing against Montana, but like to do well on those shows, I would have to do a certain brand of comedy that is not good in the long run. You learn how to survive for the night, not your career.
Yeah, because you're like a comedian's comedian, I would say. Like, because at the time when I discovered you, I had been watching a lot of I still watch a lot of stand up, and the thing with if you watch a lot of stand up or other comedians that watch stand up, it kind of takes more to get you to laugh, right? So I mean, I think that's why I think a lot of comedians, because they've seen everything. Like you're not like the beginner comedian, right? Like if people are just getting into comedy,
like I think. For sure, it's not. I don't go for the low hanging fruit, and if I do, it's in a different way. It's not. I don't go for the easy, and it's not because I try not to go for the easy. I just kind of don't think that way even to begin with. I just learned to accept that maybe I have a novel mind, or I'm wired a certain way, and what I believe is funny is that's kind of refreshing too, just as an artist, because when you first start, you wonder like, am I funny? Will I continue to write jokes? And is this fleeting? You know, like, was it luck, these jokes that I came up with? But you do it so long, it's really, I guess, kind of refreshing, or an epiphany as an artist, where you can kind of rest easy and be like, oh no, I'm just wired a weird way. And that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Definitely.
this well isn't going to go dry. It'll ebb and flow, but just the wires in my brain are arranged a certain way where I don't have to worry about, oh, my debut album was great and I've got nothing in the tank.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, because that's the other thing is like you don't like to do a lot of like we used to see you weekly in Seattle, and you almost always have you had new jokes every week almost. Whether some of them might have been some older ones, but you're always bringing up new stuff every week. So you don't have any problem getting material.
I think I was lucky in that. That's what drives me. That's what I love about stand-up. I love something working for the first time, and I receive a lot of new ideas throughout the week. And my favorite part about stand-up is getting to express those new ideas. I'm most invested in my newest ideas than I am old ones that crush. Like, those have a place. Like, when I headline somewhere and I need to do well, people paid money to come see me. Like, sure, and it's still fun to do. But I derive the most pleasure from a newer bit, trying to get it to work, or like a newer bit in my arsenal or something. So I'm always chasing that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's good, because I think early on I was always chasing that. So I was doing so much new stuff and probably not doing well by, I don't know, comedian standards, I guess. Like, but since I was chasing that new thing for so long, it taught me how to write faster, or it just got me in the mode of how to write fast.
Yeah, because you're coming up with not only stand-up stuff, but like your Instagram stuff is killing it too right now.
Thanks. Well, that's just trying to adapt to quarantine, because I can't. Stand-up isn't really. There's not a ton of it going on right now, so
sure.
Just
you're not a fan of the Zoom stand-up.
I did one of them just to see what it feels like, because at first I was like, oh, that's not real stand-up, and I don't want to do that. But then part of me was like, wow. Let me just see what it's like. I don't have to do it every week or whatever, but let me just see what it feels like out of curiosity. And I did it, and it was fun, but it's not like, oh, that's the new thing for me.
Mm. Yeah. So, but going back to LA, when you first moved there, and then you started doing these auditions, like how many auditions would you do, or do you do, or before the COVID, how many did you do typically in a week for TV and movies and stuff?
You mean like as of a couple months ago?
Yeah, like before the lockdown and stuff.
It was pared down a bit. I mean, back in the day, I would go on a lot more. I would go on commercial auditions. I would go on TV and movie auditions. I would go on a lot of auditions, like especially in my like mid to late 20s. I would do that a lot. I would just audition a lot. But I had this shift in my career where I was like, I don't want to go out for everything. And what's the point going out for some NCIS series regular or something? Like, that's great as an actor, but how does that help me as a comedian? I care more about being a comedian than an actor. If you know what I mean? So it's just sort of like a priority shift. If you look at my IMDb, I've done a lot of, I've been on a lot of shows, and it's cool, it's novel, but it hasn't really helped me stand-up wise, or it's not like I've become a huge stand-up brand because of those little acting things. They were fun to do, but it seemed like a nice time to pull focus and just drive the ship forward in terms of being a comedic brand, like a Hannibal, or you know what I mean, or an Eric Andre, where people know them as a comedian, and you see them act in things as well, but they definitely have built their brand as a comedian. Whereas if you're just auditioning for everything and acting and everything, you're just like a vessel for everybody else, and no one sees you as that thing anymore. Yeah,
you actually came close to getting the role of Abed on Community, Was there any other big roles that you auditioned for or came close to?
I mean, I think I forget the actual projects, but there's this process in Hollywood where you audition and then you go to a producer session, and that's with the producer and the director and the writer and stuff. And then after that, there's the studio test. And then that's like the studio people. And then there's the network test after that. This is for like sitcoms and stuff. And I've been through that process. I know. It's like icing the kicker like every fucking time. You're like, again? You've got to smash it like 6 times in a row. And it's just like the iciest of environments too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they do the pleasantries where they're like, "Hey, how you doing? How's traffic? You get here? Cool. Yeah. Where do you live? Oh, that's great. This is Doug. He's the writer. This is and there's a coffee table and there's some hors d'oeuvres and shit for them to eat. And you pretend that it's not the fucking weirdest circumstance in the world. Both parties are pretending this isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you're both
like
pretending
awkward.
It's not Game 7 of the NBA Finals. You're like, yeah. How are the kids? Oh, it's so hard to get them out of bed, and yeah. And then you're like, all right, so it's first scene, and it's just so high stakes, you know?
Yeah, and then do you think that the casting directors, you've said like that you think maybe sometimes they're scared to take a risk on you because you're Afghan, so like, and there's no, I guess recipe for that.
Less about the casting directors. The casting directors are just trying to cast the role, and if you're right for it, you're right for it. And if you're being seen casting wise, there's a chance that you are right for it. If you're not, then they're not even going to see you, I'm just talking overall. I'm talking more in the stand-up sense when I've said that in the past. Just what box do you put an Afghan American stand-up comedian who doesn't really talk about being Afghan, and like I do sometimes? It's like, who's my audience? You know what I mean? Like, he has a weird name. Right. What do I do with this? It's just there's not really a blueprint for maybe someone like me, where there is a blueprint for a good-looking white guy or like a black guy or like a brown guy who talks about being brown a lot. There are blueprints for certain types of comedians, and then when it's not super obvious, and then it's harder to kind of plug you in.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you said that you were actually offered a part on Mad TV from your friend Bobby Lee, where it was like some sort of kind of stereotypical Middle Eastern thing where you were going to be in an apartment and they open up a closet and you're in there, like, and it was kind of a stereotypical role. So you actually turned it down. Have you turned down other roles?
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I guess I have that rep of like, I say no to a lot of stuff, but
do you really?
I've heard from like other comics, and not in a negative way, or maybe in a negative way for some people, but I'm just sort of, I know what I want to do, and there's like a way I want to do it as well. Like the Bobby thing, I love Bobby, and I know him from the Comedy Store, and I think it was the first time I met him. He offered me that role, so I met him at the Comedy Store, and then he's asking about my background and all that stuff, and he goes, "Do you want to do this part on Mad TV where I open up my drawer and then you're like in a turban and your underwear sharpening a sword, and like that's it,
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that because it's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's pretty.
You know what I mean?
That's pretty
I think
ballsy though to turn down Mad TV and turn down Bobby Lee. You're like, I can do better than this. Like, that's pretty awesome.
But I really don't want. When he described what it is, it's not like I'm not just dying to be on TV at whatever cost, and that's more of like chomping at the bit. If you're an actor, you just want to be on TV and you don't care what the role is. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. That's not my ethos. Even my comedy, I would get scared. Sometimes offers would come through, and the role is Middle Eastern, and there's an accent and stuff, and then I would just think about doing, because it's so not what I do stand up wise. But
you did do some of that
wondered,
stuff.
I go,
right? I think it was
a little
the Superior Donuts
a
or a couple of those shows. I was like, oh, he's like doing the accent stuff.
Superior, not. No, I was normal in that.
Was it the Kirstie Alley one?
Yeah, one.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's tough though, because you cross that bridge. You especially, I was younger then too. Like, you can't be as adamant then. You can a little bit, because you have to weigh, all right, this in a perfect world, I don't do any accent ever. But then sometimes opportunities come through and you go, does this help me career-wise, even though I don't want to do the accent? The Bobby thing, like I'm just, that's nothing. You know, I'm an extra.
Yeah.
I'm in a turban, and that's so stereotypical, I don't want to do it.
Right.
I think it's hard for me when it's stereotypical like that. If it's not coming from me, it feels like I'm being put on or something. I like having control over it.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, because like
like if
your
I'm
skits
like,
are
like
genius.
when I did Goatface.
Yes.
When I did Goatface, I'm the head writer on it.
Right.
So I wrote it, and if I'm gonna put a turban on, it's because I have an angle or I'm doing it in a smart way. I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of or setting my people back when I have control over it.
You're not being exploited.
I'm not being exploited because I know what I'm doing and I know where my heart is as an Afghan American person writing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas sometimes auditions come through and you don't know the ethnicity of the writer. Not that, other ethnicities can't write other stories of ethnic people in moving ways or whatever, but there can be a disconnect.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure.
And I just I just don't want to take that chance when I'm a comedian.
Mm-hmm. You did do the Wisco Tango Foxtrot. That was really cool.
That was another one because that was cool. And again, it's one of those things of like, okay, I got to dress like a Middle Eastern person and I have to do an accent, but it wasn't overtly like watered down or dumb or something like that. And the caliber of people I was working with, like Margot Robbie, Tina Fey, and Alfred Molina, and just the directors too. I was like, yeah, I got to do it.
Yeah, that was a great opportunity. Were you a little starstruck?
And it was a great experience.
Yeah.
It was a great experience to do. So yeah, again, so I would always weigh how Middle Eastern it is with the career opportunity.
Were you starstruck?
So like the Bobby thing is very different than Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. What's that?
Were you starstruck being on the Wisco with all those big stars? Hey, your mom got to go to the premiere and got pictures with Tina Fey and stuff. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was kind of a trip. I guess I was, but subdued. I didn't freak out or anything. But I remember we did this kickoff dinner before we started shooting in New Mexico. So I'm at this dinner with Martin Freeman, Tina Fey, Margot Robbie, Lorne Michaels. I met him and we're talking a little bit. He would never remember it or anything, but that was just so surreal.
Yeah. Well,
and I remember having this thought when I was talking to Lorne, because I forgot what we were talking about. I think hockey came up and he was talking about growing up in hockey and stuff. And I was having this conversation with him and I just thought, like, it's cool that I'm talking to Lorne, but I wish it was in the capacity of talking about SNL. I didn't think it would be like this small talk at it. It's still very cool, but it's not in the capacity that launched me down this path.
Yeah. Did you ever think of pitching yourself at that point and saying,
talking to Lorne for the first time? No, that's just like, that's how you know you don't belong at the party. You know what I mean? I'm at this kickoff dinner for Whiskey Tango. I'm like, oh, Lorne, I'm also a comedian and I'm really a funny guy and I grew up on SNL and here's my demo and it's a VHS cassette, even though everything's digital. Here's my Betamax. Do you guys still use Betamax?
It's like a band giving their demo tape to the
like maybe that works for like the Motown story, but I don't know about SNL where you corner Lorne Michaels and do some characters for him in the bathroom.
I swear you should be on SNL. I know you've talked about this before and you said, no, you can't get on. You have to know somebody or blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, you should. Your stuff on Instagram is as funny, if not funnier, than a lot of the stuff on SNL.
Maybe, sure. Yeah, it's all subjective. But I don't know how their hiring goes. You need to have their ear. They can't look at everything, you know? So I think part of it is catching the eye of they just have to stumble upon it on their own. You can't force it down someone's throat. There's a magic to someone discovering something on their own and not feeling put up to it. Because I guarantee you a million agents and managers are trying to pitch their person. And if someone's like, yo, look at this, blah, 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 you got to look at my guy. And you finally pull it up, you're already going to have your defenses up.
Yeah, True.
Whereas if you discover this person in a cool way, like someone they really respect is like, hey, check this out, or because agents and managers pitching is not like the most honest way to see something.
Well, that's cool because you did your own sketch comedy with Goatface, and you guys had the special in 2018 on Comedy Central. I think my favorite bit in the special was this has your, I swear you must have wrote this because it's totally your style, where it's like the four of you guys watching the news and there's a mass shooting and you're all seriously watching it, and then you all jump up for joy when you find out it's like a white guy. Was that your idea?
Yeah.
Is there a little bit of truth to that though?
Bits.
Oh, really?
There is. Like that was a stand-up bit of mine that I turned into a sketch. Yeah,
genius.
Like the bit is basically like when you find out the ethnicity of the person, whenever there's like a tragedy, like whenever you find out that it isn't your ethnicity, aren't you a little relieved? And then I go like, what was it? I go remember like when the Vegas thing happened, you know?
Oh God!
It came out that it was
bad.
It was a white guy. Like every brown person was like, oh, thank God. I go like every brown person was like, this is how we do. So just turning that into a sketch.
Yeah, genius. No, I love that. And then you got to be on Conan. That had to have been surreal as well, right? Because you grew up a fan of his.
Yeah, that was really cool. I've done it twice now, but the first time was definitely more of a monumental thing in my mind because I grew up with this guy.
Yeah.
And I've said it on other podcasts before, not only did I grow up watching his show after The Tonight Show, but he was a part of everything that influenced me as a child when it came to comedy. He wrote for SNL, he wrote for The Simpsons, and then I loved his late night show.
Forgot about that.
So there is a strand of Conan in my comedy DNA.
Did he remember you the second time, or?
I don't know.
Because they see so many comedians.
They see so many. I mean, he's very gracious. The times that I've met him on the show, and
it's because your comedy is his. Like, I feel like he would be a fan of yours. Like, because it seems like you guys have similar style.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, kindred spirits, I guess.
I know one comedian that's a fan of yours is Bill Burr. That was pretty cool. He gave you a shout out and said that you're like one of the best comedians out there right now.
Yeah, that was random and super nice. That's the beauty of the Comedy Store is there's 3 showrooms and you never know. Everyone's kind of bouncing between them as comedians, and you do so many sets a night. Sometimes you're surprised at who happens to be in the audience because he wanted to pop up in the belly room and do a set on this show. And so he happened to go, I think it was going up after me. So I didn't know till after I got off. And he didn't even acknowledge anything. I didn't know he even really, it made an impact or anything. And then I see this interview that someone had done with him, and they asked him like, you know, what comics do you like? Who do you like? And then he mentioned that show in the belly room and said all these, you remember my name? Just sometimes you think there's such a huge disconnect between you and these people you really admire who are upperclassmen in comedy. And when they mention your name and say these nice things, it's really flattering and surprising because you don't think you exist to them. But it's great validation. That's one of my that's as a comedian, that's one of the best credits you can get. Even though it doesn't really make a splash with the average person, for comedians that was like a big stamp for me, just personally.
No, that's super cool. And also, you have some other famous fans. You said that the guy from O-Town, Trevor, is a fan, and like some music people classics, Portugal the Man. And I don't know if you knew this one. This is because you're more EDM. Yeah. I'm a rock guy, but Todd Kearns, he's like the guitarist that works with Slash. He's a fan of yours. Who? Todd Kearns. He's like
oh yeah.
Do you know him or? He follows you on Instagram.
We're like Instagram.
Yeah.
We're Instagram friends.
Yeah. That's kind of cool.
That is cool. I think that's also the beauty of just being out here in LA and being in the Comedy Store. These everyone's in the industry, and the Comedy Store is a beacon of stand-up comedy. So you do so many shows throughout a night, you don't know who's in the audience and who becomes a fan, and these people you meet. Like I would never think that these people would gravitate towards my stuff, but it's very cool.
No, it's amazing. You said Michael Shannon was in the audience once? He's a really good actor.
Yeah. And I love him too. Like, he's seen me twice, and then I talked to him. Me and Kirk Fox, he saw our sets, and then he came up to us and was chatting with us at the Comedy Store patio, the front patio. It was great. Just have a conversation with the guy, and that's one of those things too where he's so good at his craft, and he enjoys stand-up comedy and respects it in the same way he respects acting. Just there's this cool mutual admiration for artists in other fields. I noticed that with music because I love musicians as well, and I wish I could do what they do, and they reciprocate as well. So sometimes it's cool to see Michael Shannon just pop into the Comedy Store. They let him in. He just sits in the bucket seats by himself in the back. He has like a glass of scotch.
He's by himself?
He just enjoys himself.
Interesting.
By himself, yeah.
I thought he'd have a huge
he's not
entourage.
The only one who does that. Other celebrity, he's a chill dude, man. Like, he's not like that.
Wow. Would you ever?
I think that's the coolest thing, because
it's super
he's
cool.
not the only one I've heard who have done that, where they just come to enjoy themselves. They just slink in the back and like they're not even there. They don't make a big to-do about it. They're just there to enjoy comedy and slip out
undetected.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Would you ever?
I've heard Ricky Gervais has done that. I think Tarantino has done that. Johnny Depp has done it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Would you ever audition for like a serious dramatic role? Or have you?
I would. I have, yeah, and I would. You know, a long time ago, you know that The Night Of on HBO?
No, what's that?
It was with Riz Ahmed. He was in prison, you know. Fuck.
It's a movie or show?
It was like a mini series.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check it out.
Mr. Deeds. John Turturro was in it. He's the lawyer. He's got the saran wrap on his feet.
What? That sounds great. I just got HBO, so I'm catching up on all the old shows.
It was a big mini series, and then I think years before that, so it took a while for it to get off the ground. Like, Gandolfini was initially going to be the John Turturro character, but then he passed away, and then Turturro took over when it finally got off the ground. But I auditioned for that, but that was just submitting. But yeah, it would be fun to act in a dramatic thing, but not a series regular, and I'm not an established comedian yet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't mind if it was just a movie or like a guest star in a show, but I still want to move the boat forward comedy-wise.
Yeah, so
before I attach myself to something dramatic for a long time.
Sure.
So I would love to do drama, but just a short burst. So it's a movie where the end is in sight pretty pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Whatever happened?
Like, I don't want to do 4 seasons of a drama, because that doesn't help me as a comedian who's trying to get seen. You know,
that would be annoying for sure. Whatever happened to Lance? Is he still kicking around? I know the podcast dried up, but you haven't done the character for a couple of years, but then you brought him back right before the lockdown. But wasn't there going to be
craziest timing?
Yeah,
like Lance hadn't performed for 2 years. And then Lance performed. He came back after 2 years, performed at the Comedy Store, and then COVID happened. But that performance was pretty amazing, and it was fucking great to be back.
Yeah. Wasn't there a TV show that was maybe like was it the producer from, was it Scrubs you told me that was maybe interested?
Bill Lawrence. So Bill Lawrence was a fan of Lance, and he wanted to develop a show. So we did that. We tried to develop this Lance show, and we took it around. And it didn't really go anywhere. Just, we pitched it around. No one really kind of wanted it, or whatever the angle we had for it. So that sucked, because I thought it's a great character, and I still do think it's a great character. I just think the puzzle isn't there yet. I don't want to abandon it completely, but I think there still is hope for Lance. It's just whatever the right fit is for the next one.
Oh, yeah.
The next iteration.
I love Lance. You do any other characters?
That's like the main one.
Yeah.
And that's the one that does stand up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if I do characters, it's just to service whatever the idea I have.
Yeah.
I'll just have these sketch ideas, and then I will do whatever I have to do to get the point across. And if I happen to do some character in it, so be it. But it's not like I have these smashing characters, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you ever worry about the cancel culture with a character like Lance, or just any of your material in general? Because I've seen you do like some kind of darker stuff, which I think is hilarious and I love it. But I know that there's some people that don't.
Yes,
so
I do. And I dance that line and I worry about it, and I definitely kind of comb through things with more of a fine-tooth comb these days. And the thing is, seeing society evolve as well. And the way Twitter has changed. Twitter's been around for a long time, and when I first signed up for it, and I think every comic just treated it as an open mic. They just thought of it as these fleeting thoughts, you know?
Oh, yeah.
If you go to an open mic, comics are just constantly throwing ideas out there. It's like feeding a duck. They're just ripping off some breadcrumbs and seeing if anything sticks. If you go to an open mic and a joke is off color, doesn't do well, it's gone. It's gone forever. You know?
Yeah.
Those words were said. They're dissipated. The vibrations are gone. The comic knows to never do it again. Maybe they even learn a lesson by how it falls like a lead balloon. They go, okay, that's too far. But with Twitter,
there's a history. There's a record yeah,
of it.
It's scary.
And people think that you've chiseled it in stone, that you believe this wholeheartedly just because it happens to have a timestamp and it's still up there. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I think just because there's receipts for this thing that was said, people think that it's a platform that this person is running for in political office, whereas it was merely a brain dropping, especially in the early days of Twitter.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
no one knew what it was, and society evolves every year. It's just crazy to have receipts of society evolving, you know? Imagine the tweets from 1920.
Never thought of that, but yeah.
Even podcasts, like the podcasts I do, I just think about, and the podcast everyone does, we just have so much catalog of ideas and ways of speaking that are like depositions throughout time. You know, when you listen to this podcast, or I'm sure any podcast that I've done, if you listen to it 150 years from now, I don't think anything bad is on them, but by those standards, they must be.
Things can change.
Yeah, so I think it's so new and everyone's trying to figure it out, and already you're starting to see people have some atrophy from it. Just the pendulum is shifted a bit, where the sky can't be falling every day, and let's kind of apply context to every case now instead of just a blanket. Every day on Twitter, it's like so-and-so's over party, so-and-so's over, so-and-so's over. It's become sport.
Jeez. I know, it's frustrating too. And like you said, I mean, it's brain droppings. They're comedians are trying to make jokes. Again, you have to try different stuff before you know what's funny and what's not.
Yeah, it's just Twitter is it's a context-less medium. So even if you try to explain like, oh, this is what I meant, it's not fashionable to be like, oh, I understand. You know, on Twitter, be like, I see what you're trying to say. Yeah, it's just fun to retweet within your echo chamber and get those karma points, you know?
Yeah.
And I've been guilty of it too. Just, it's so much easier just to retweet something and take someone's quote from the retweet as the hot take without reading or assessing the actual situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think we all do that. We were just in Vegas recently. We saw some kind of bad, not when we saw you, but we saw some other bad comedians in Vegas. And I don't want to name names, but have you seen some comedian? You must have seen a lot of like bad comedians, and not just open mic, but people that actually tour and even headline clubs. Like, how do you handle that when you see them after? Do you just kind of fake it? Like, oh yeah, good set, or?
Yeah. I mean, well, you don't go out of your way to be like, great set, but it's sort of like saying hi to someone, you know, if they come off stage, and people know, you know what I mean? Like if it's a kind of tepid response from the audience, you say like good job, or you fist bump them, or if they're walking by you or something, it's really not as weird as you think it is.
Yeah. What about good comedians? Have you seen any, like, who are some young up and coming guys that might not necessarily be in the national spotlight, but are big at the Comedy Store or locally in LA?
there's quite a few young comedians that are good. There's this guy Meki Leper. I like him.
Oh yeah, I know of him.
If I'm saying it, yeah, Meki Leper's great.
I think I asked him to do my podcast.
He's like Moroccan. And,
yes,
I think he's Moroccan and something else, or maybe just full Moroccan. He's funny. Ali Makovsky's funny. She's like a younger girl. Yeah, I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, I don't know. I got to think about it.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, I always just like to hear. That's good. That's a good couple names, people to check out, because you guys know more than we do. There's so many good comedians. I find them every day. I found this guy yesterday. Right. Is it Ryan Logan? He did this sketch about racism and wokeness, and it blew up.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I just discovered that too. Yeah,
that was hilarious.
Great. Yeah.
You liked it too? Yeah.
I discovered him that way too. I mean, he has some other funny videos as well, but it's funny. We probably discovered him at the same time.
Yeah.
He seems to be a New York guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's harder to keep tabs on New York guys because I'm out here in LA.
Is there kind of like a East Coast, West Coast gang rival kind of thing with comedy, or?
I don't think so. I don't think there's a gang. But there's definitely different scenes. It's a different scene and kind of way of operating.
Do you ever get to go perform over there sometimes?
Not as much as I'd like to. I have a little bit. When we were filming Goatface out there, I did some stand-up, and I'm trying to think. I've done some spots in New York, but I'm never there long enough to be a part of the scene, which I would like to. COVID happened. I was actually planning on maybe spending some time or splitting some time in New York, but COVID happened, and that's on the back burner. But I would definitely like to be more a part of the New York comedy scene, just because it's like a whole new level in Grand Theft Auto that you've never been to. Like a whole new part of the map.
Yeah, there's a lot of great comedians over there.
I've done LA, and LA's great, but there's something very cool about being seen with fresh eyes, especially in a place like New York.
Mm-hmm. A lot of comedy clubs there, and then you've done a lot of podcasts. I think you've done the biggest podcast. You did the Joe Rogan podcast. Did you get the pic with the flamethrower and the sword, or I didn't see you post that? Seems like they always.
We didn't do that one. He was running late, and I don't know. I forgot after the fact. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck! I should have done the sword or flamethrower.
Yeah. Did you see a big bump in followers after you did that interview?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Yeah.
I was trying to watch because I was just curious myself. I was like, I wonder if he's going to get. I saw I kept checking. It was like a couple hundred. I was like, wow, it's working.
Yeah, it's bigger. It's bigger than when I've done 3 late nights, and that was bigger than all of them.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm. That just shows you a sign of the times and how things have shifted. Back in the day, late night was the way to make a splash as a comedian. And nowadays, it's a Rogan.
It was the only way.
Yeah, it was the only way. And now it's just sort of a feather in your cap for people who were born in a certain year and give it that kind of credence,
Mm-hmm. Well,
as an artist, it fills this hole, but as a businessman, it doesn't.
Right. Another podcast you did was you just did Brittany Furlan's podcast, Worst First. And I know you're kind of more into EDM than rock, but her husband is Tommy Lee, the drummer of Motley Crue. Did you get to meet him, or did you have any interaction with him?
Yeah, but not that day. So I know Brittany from quite a bit. I think she was dating a comic I knew from back in the day, and she was doing stand up a little bit as well in the early years, and then she got big on Vine and Instagram and stuff, and so we've been kind of friendly from afar. And she had been wanting me to kind of do the podcast for a while. I just never lined up, and I did it, and we just kept in touch and stuff. And then I had this idea during quarantine of this R&B video of what, because you see these Usher videos where he's always dancing next to the girl and shit.
Right.
And then my take on it was that you got to be so far away from them. So it'd be funny to do an R&B music video where the R&B singer is wearing a mask and she's wearing a mask and he's just so far away dancing because he loves her.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Oh, yeah. So I'm like, Brittany would be good to be the love interest in this little music video thing for Instagram. So she's like, yeah, I'm down. Can you come to me and we do it? I go, for sure. And she lives pretty close to me, I think out there in Calabasas. So we went there, me and my buddy, Andrew Zen, shot the thing. And we go to their house. Tommy Lee's there. But first we shoot the video and then we come inside and then she introduces us and I go, hey, what's up? So I meet him and he's a cool dude, really nice guy, but it's such a mind trip. Like, oh, that's fucking weird. Especially even driving to the shoot, I'm driving to their house and there's this gate and they're like looking at me and I'm like, yeah, I'm here to see Tommy Lee. Like I never thought I would ever be saying that out of my mouth. And under these circumstances, it's just such a weird world.
Yeah.
Just the gates open, like, it's so funny.
Wow.
Just me to pop my head out of my Mazda 3, my 2007 Mazda 3, and be like, here's he, Tommy Lee. Just like a question, not even confident about it. And then and I just drive up there.
Oh, that's awesome.
But Brittany's cool. She's like sent me video of her showing my special to him. And I just see him watching my special on a laptop and laughing.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. I found this out. Because I always thought when I first met you, you didn't drink or like do anything. And then I heard a story you were telling about how you did mushrooms.
Yeah.
And then you smoked weed for the first time and all this stuff. Like, what happened? You fell off the wagon.
That's pretty much it. You nailed everything that I've done. And it was pretty much those one times.
Oh, really? Just the one time?
Yeah. I think I've done weed maybe two or three times. And then not anymore. Because the third time was just like, I really didn't like it.
Did you get paranoid or?
Yeah. I'm a paranoid guy. I even turned into a stand-up bit where I'm just like, I just talk about the experience. I go, like, it's not for me. I go, like, I just get terrified. I just get really, like, paranoid and stuff. And I go, and it's hard because I don't want to ruin everybody else's good time.
Right.
So I have to pretend. So then I do this whole thing where I smoke it and I'm like, is that sticky icky? And then my eyes just look super paranoid. I'm like looking around. And I'm like, is that good shit? And I'm like, help me.
No, it's like
that, and then
the mushrooms.
Sorry, what was that?
No, I was just gonna say it's interesting about you because a lot of comedians, they seem to have like some sort of insecurity, and and sadly, unfortunately, a lot of them die young because they have substance issues or suicide, or like you seem to have your shit together. Like there's obviously not real big drug issues.
Yeah,
you seem real secure. Like
right.
So like what drove you into comedy as opposed to just being a fan of comedy? Like, you know what I mean? It always seems like there's some sort of like something people have to prove or like a pain that they're dealing with, or.
I think I just loved it so much as a kid and I had an aptitude for it. Like I'm not dumb. Do. I would go through life and I would make people laugh pretty hard, like my friends and even adults. And I always recognized that early on that I wasn't just making kids laugh. It wasn't like funny in the way that a kid is funny.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be like, this sounds like super pretentious and shit, but
no, it's
I'm an
totally
observer.
True.
I think I think I'm pretty good at observing things without adding some filter to it, seeing things for what they are. And I think that's what makes a good comedian as well, is just sort of like seeing things for what they are and not adding their own. I don't know. Some people have like warped perception of what's really going on, and that makes for a bad comedian as well. Some comedians, they hear laughs even though there are none, so they think they're killing, and we call those laugh ears in the biz. So because that means you don't grow as a comedian, where what's happening during your shows and you're up there, if you can't assess the actual situation of what's going on, you're not going to be able to grow.
Right. You have to learn from your failure, but if you don't think you failed,
Yes, exactly. If you think you're crushing every time when you're bombing, you're not going to fix anything to get better. But if you can see a bomb for a bomb or a mediocre set for a mediocre set, that's really powerful too. I think that and editing, being a good editor. But when I was a kid, I would notice that like I would make the parents laugh or my friend's parents or the teacher laugh. And I just noticed it was like a different type of humor that was a little more sophisticated than just childish humor.
Mm-hmm. No, that's impressive.
So I think those things that I loved coupled with the aptitude that I'd make my lunch table laugh, and I was good at the videos too.
That's awesome.
Like sketches. So I just ran with it. It was like knowing you have an aptitude for something and just being super driven and having grit. And
yes.
So that the setbacks don't take all the wind out of your sails.
Well, yeah, because did you ever think at a time, I know like you did Chuck in 2010, that was your first big TV thing that you did. And then you had the MTV Disaster Day, you had a couple other things. But then there was like things kind of dried out for a little bit. Did you ever have that thought of maybe I should just go back to engineering or?
Yeah, I mean, early on, I think it was scariest maybe the first or second year when I left engineering because it's uncharted water, and it is something not very firm. And engineering has a firm foundation. You know what you're going to get. Your runway is pretty clear. And then entertainment, I had enough going on for me that I can make the jump. But then it gets a little dicey maybe after year one or year two. But I always had this deal that I would do it myself where I go every year, assess and be honest. Am I further along than the year before? Am I progressing? And if I am, I'm on the right track. If I'm doing the same or regressing, then it's time to assess an escape hatch or go back to engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people set out on a path, and even though the world tells them it's not for them, they continue swimming upstream.
Yeah. But it's part of that is like
way
you
longer
said,
than they should have.
The grit is like, I mean, I've interviewed so many people that, I mean, it's taken them 5, 10, 15 years to get to be successful at whatever they do. It's crazy. But I mean, you were kind of lucky early on, not lucky, but you got some success early on. That must have encouraged you.
Yeah, I got some success, and every year I would have a few things within that year that led me to believe that I'm on the right path. And like, okay, this is a new credit. This is a new credit. I'm doing better. I'm like on the road more, or I got this acting thing, or I got this writing thing. And so there was enough action and enough movement where I knew I was on the right path.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. You definitely are. What do you think the next step for you is going to be?
Next step.
You want to do another special, right?
Yeah, that's the weird thing is I was pretty much ready to do another special, at least material wise. I was trying to figure out where I was going to shoot it and like where it would end up, like if I would try to sell it somewhere or do it on my own. But now COVID has really thrown in a wrench into everyone's next plans,
right?
Really. So yeah, I guess before COVID, the plan was for my next special to do that. And now I don't know. I have the material. Now I'm trying to reconcile. I do have audio of it, like decent audio of it from when I did House of Comedy out there in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm debating.
That was great. Yeah, you did great stuff there.
Thanks, man. I'm trying to figure out what to do because when is regular stand-up going to come back the way we knew it? Who knows, right?
Is it open some places? I know Andrew Rivers like ran in and ran out. Like he did a quick set and recorded it in like Oklahoma or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, some places are, but not on a large scale. And
you need like a theater to
be.
You need like a theater to do a special? Yeah.
I don't know, not a theater, but you kind of need a capacity comedy club. Like if you're doing a socially distanced show and there's 50 people in a room that seats 300, it's going to sound weird, I don't know if I want. Yeah. I don't know if I want to do a pandemic special,
Yeah, and then how long do you think this will be like this? That's the question.
Yeah, so there's 3 routes you can take. There's try to figure out what to do with your unfinished or just sort of audio version of pre-COVID material. So I have that set from when we were in a simpler time with no pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I figure out a way to put that out? Or do I do a COVID special where it's like outside and it's weird and shit? Or do I wait until who knows when comedy's back to normal? That could be a year. That could be a few months. It could be a couple years.
Yeah. Do you make these decisions on your own, or do you have a manager or someone that helps you?
I have a manager, but then I also think he's a good soundboard as well. Like, trying to decide, because before, when this thing first happened, I think my thought was, all right, this thing will be over, and then we can get back to doing my regular special when clubs are open, and like they were at capacity the way they used to be. And after the second shutdown, it seems like that's not the case, and that's further away. So that's what made me question, all right, maybe I need to make do with what I currently have. Whatever version of it I have on my hard drive, is there a way to repurpose that or make that novel enough for a release? Do I try to... These are internal questions I have between me and my team and stuff. So right now at this juncture, I'm trying to determine, do I hold on to this thing for when it opens up again? Or do I release it under the context of, hey, this is what I did before shit hit the fan. This is as like finished as it got.
Yeah, because if you wait too long, then the material could even get dated, right?
Yes, there's that too. Then it's sort of like, it's twofold. Do I even care about this shit anymore now that I'm like 2 years removed from the pandemic? Right?
Yeah.
That and then is it relevant? So yeah, there's all these new questions that have arisen because of this thing.
Yeah. One thing I know is people are hungry for content because there's not a lot to do. So a lot of people are releasing stuff.
Yeah, there is that too. Everyone's kind of quarantined. There's not a lot of stuff being done currently. Productions are shut down.
Can you write like a screenplay or a TV pilot idea?
Yeah, I could do that. So I guess during the quarantine, I've been focusing more on the things that I can do rather than can't do. Because I could just sit at home all day and be like, when are clubs going to open? And just get nowhere. Or get creative, like the little skits on IG, or write some sketches, or a sitcom or a screenplay.
I'm loving the sketches that you're doing. Do people ever try to give you jokes or joke ideas? Like people who aren't comedians?
It used to happen more so back in the day. I mean, even from my family, sometimes like my brother or my cousin, they would have an idea and they'd be like, hey, you should do this. Because I think there's this element of everyone thinks they have good ideas or are funny. And the big hurdle is getting on stage. Most people don't want to actually try this idea out because the investment is too much. People don't want to public speak, so they'd be like, "Hey, this is the next best thing if I just tell this comedian I know to try it out."
I had an idea for, you're probably gonna hate that. I have two ideas actually. One, these are not stand up ideas though, but like to do like a video. This sounds like something you could. I don't know. You'd have to make it funny, but. Like you do jokes about the mass shootings.
Yo, that's my favorite pitch.
Yeah.
Hey, you should do this.
You'll make this funny.
You'll have to figure out how to make it funny.
No. Hear me out.
What do I need you for?
No, hear me out. Because you do the mass shooting jokes. Wouldn't this be fun? This is a funny premise. Listen, there's like a Zoom meeting, right? Like either for school or work. Yeah. And like there's a mass shooter and he's on a Zoom call and he doesn't realize that he can't hurt people. And he tries to do like a mass shooting on the Zoom call because he has to do it remotely. That's not a funny premise.
Yeah. And then he shoots the webcam and then he goes dark. And then everyone's like, oh, that's weird. And they just go back to their lesson.
I don't know. It's something. You can have that idea. I'd love to see that. Yes. My other idea for you, and this is just for you to team up with Ryan O'Flanagan, because you're the one that turned me on to him. He is hilarious. He makes hilarious videos.
Oh,
I think Ryan. You two need to make a video together. Have you ever talked about that?
Yeah, I love his stuff. We haven't talked about that, but sometimes I don't know if it's that easy where it's just sort of like, yo, we got to team up and make something. Comedy's not like musicians where like, yo, come over, let's comedy jam. Like, oh yeah, that's funny.
No, you don't have an idea that like you think like a part he could play or something in one of your sketches, or I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. For sure, I love Ryan O'Flanagan and I love other comics as well. I think the way I work is I'll think of a sketch, I'll write it out, and then I plug in whoever I think is right for it. Like, who do I know that I envision as this? That's the beauty of doing stand-up and being surrounded by so many other comedians. I just know who's right for it. It's not like I have to go to central casting and be like, hey, get me this person. I already know who's funny, and I know who could do it.
Yeah, you have tons of comedian friends, right? I mean,
I have tons of comedian friends, and it's very much its own scene, and we have camaraderie already. It's like acting adjacent.
That's very cool. Can you do? Yeah. I have one more request. Can you do your Rocky Balboa stand-up comedy for us? That is one of my favorites.
Rocky doing stand-up.
Yeah, or just one like what he would say if he was on this podcast right now. Just any rock. Give me some Rocky.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, Chuck's been dreaming about to be on this podcast. Yeah.
Oh God, it's so.
I don't know if it's the best Rocky, but it's an approximation.
No, I think people need to see the whole stand-up bit. It's hilarious.
I put it on YouTube. If you go to youtube.com/Fahim Anwar, I think it's up there.
Yeah,
his daughters have actually seen the bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think someone sent it to them.
Hopefully, they liked it.
Yeah, probably. Hey, it's done with love, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I always end with a charity, so I think that was the homework I gave you. Hopefully, I mean, so do you have? Is there a charity or besides doing my podcast? Is there like a nonprofit that you like to support? Or
I don't. I forgot that part. Can I get back to you on the charity? I didn't do my homework.
Yeah, that's fine. I can add it to the notes.
You know
later.
what it's going to be though? It's probably going to be an Afghan charity though.
Yeah, for sure.
I got to help the people, dude.
Definitely, dude. You definitely should. Absolutely, that'd be amazing. Yeah, because I've never had. You're my first Afghan person on my show. It's very cool.
One of many.
Yeah. What other like Afghan famous or comedians or musicians or people that would want to do that I'd want to have on a podcast? I'm trying to think.
It's an interesting Venn diagram right there. That sliver. I don't know.
That's what makes you so cool. It's so unique. Well, like what else can we promote for you? You've got the Fahim Anwar Dance Hour podcast. Your special, There's No Business Like Show Business.
It's for free. Comedy Central put it out. Yeah. So if you go on Comedy Central stand-ups YouTube, if you just search for it in YouTube,
it's on your YouTube, I think. Yeah,
it's on mine as well.
Yeah,
but Comedy Central's is ad free. Mine ads come up. So
okay.
It's just also There's No Business Like Show Business.
And it's also on Amazon Prime, I think, right?
It's on Prime. If you have that, you could turn that on.
And then the Goatface special, if people pay like $3, they can get that on iTunes.
You can rent it on iTunes or Amazon Prime. So that's called Goatface. And yeah, my podcast, my Instagram at Fahim Anwar, my Twitter at Fahim Anwar.
Your Instagram is, I mean, I don't usually say this, but because a lot of comedians Instagram, you need to help some comedians with this, because some comedians will have an Instagram and I feel like they don't know how to use the Instagram as like, if I follow a comedian on Instagram, I don't need to see like pictures of their food, right? I need to see like funny content, and you're really good about posting really funny content. Like I look, when I see you have a post, I'm like, yes, it's like a Christmas present, you know?
Ah, nice. Yeah. And that was kind of a shift for me as well, because Instagram initially was a picture platform.
Yeah.
So even up until a few months ago, or like a year or two ago, I always thought like, oh, I have to have some photos sprinkled in there. I can't just have all videos. And I'm not like a big picture guy. I don't like putting up a ton of pictures or feeling forced to put up pictures. And then I just had this change of thought where I go, nah, it's just like my channel. Or if I can just put all videos. I don't give a fuck. And I just been treating it like that now, where if I get a funny idea, I just put up videos. And I don't care if it's all videos.
Yeah, and how do you decide what goes? Because some of the stuff that you have is really funny is in your stories. And then I'm like, oh, crap, it's going to be gone in 24 hours. So how do you decide what goes on a story versus like a regular post?
I guess sometimes I'll do a story and I think the idea's dumb or it's so fleeting that I don't think it's good enough for an actual feed post. But if the response is really, I don't know, good on the story, then sometimes I'll be like, maybe I'll put it on the feed as well. Like if enough people really like the story, I'll put it on the feed. But usually the story is very low stakes. So that's why if I do something funny, it's dumb and fleeting and gone in 24 hours. So it's not precious. And if it happens to strike a chord, then I'll put it on the feed. So, but when I put something on the feed, I believe in this thing.
Oh yeah. No, the stuff on your feed is so great. Like one of the best ones you did was the Corona one, where the stages of coronavirus.
Yeah, that one kind of took off too.
That was genius.
And it's interesting, the different platforms. Thanks, man. I had the idea. It's just the different, if those listening who haven't seen it, it's just sort of like the different stages of it. Like at the beginning, you're like, oh, that's weird, or oh, I can't wait. I just gotta stay home. Sure.
Yeah.
And then
it's like a vacation.
Everyone, it's like a vacation. And then what do we do about money? And then, what did I do today?
And then my favorite was like, oh, I guess now they say masks do work.
Yeah, because they were saying masks don't work initially, and then I'm wearing a mask, and I'm like, so now they say masks do work, and then scrubbing down the groceries, and then it's like me saying like I think it was developed in a lab in Wuhan, and like I've said too much, and I was like paranoid. And then the very last one is me. My hair's crazy, and I'm like shouting. I'm like the guy in Vietnam where I'm like, "Come and get me, Corona! You want a piece of me?" And I'm just like licking the remote. I don't give a fuck anymore.
Oh, just you describing it is so hilarious.
Yeah, so that did well on TikTok actually, which is weird.
Oh, I forgot. I always forget about TikTok. I'm so bad about that. But I was going to ask you. So is TikTok good to you?
Yeah, it's the only place that will go viral anymore. Instagram has they've put a cap on it. None of my shit on Instagram reaches a far audience anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Everything will cap out at like 20,000 views if you're lucky on Instagram. For me at least, Back in the day I would get like 100,000 or like 80,000, and my stand-up clips would get like 200,000 or 300, but they stopped that.
Huh.
So
they put a cap on it? They actually did that? Or is it because they want you to promote it or something?
I think so. I think they want advertise. They want you to pay to reach your own audience. So Instagram is not good for organic growth anymore, really.
Interesting.
TikTok, you still can strike lightning. And I have a few videos on there that have hit 1 million or are doing really well. And that Corona one took off. And then someone tweeted the TikTok video. So then it took off on Twitter. So it's weird. You don't know what platform it's going to do well on. You just create a thing, and then you blast it on all of them, and then see. It just gives you the best chance of it sticking somewhere, because it'll take off. If you're lucky, it'll take off at one of them.
Yeah, you get paid for like YouTube's if you get a certain number of views, right? Can you get paid on the TikToks then, or? No,
not really. Yeah, you can't monetize TikTok or. It seems like YouTube is the place to do that. Yeah, man, it's trying to figure it out.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, keep up the good. Thanks so much for doing my podcast. Thanks for all the laughs. Like everybody needs to follow you right now. Your stuff is hilarious. So
thanks, man, and thanks for being a fan for so long, dude. You knew me when I was a baby.
I know. I was like, we used to joke. I'm like, I'm a super fan because I literally would watch you every week. It was hilarious. You'd get like 15, 20 minutes at that laughs place. And we'd stick around to that, for the headliner to be nice, but we were really coming to see you. So it was awesome.
How funny. That'd be funny if you just like left after my set every time. Just crush every other comedian.
No. They're just good comedians too. But yeah, there was something like, I think because we grew up with the same like comedy influences, like, so I get your jokes very well.
Yeah, it's same with music. There's just some people have a certain vibe or brand that you gravitate towards, and it reminds you of you and like you and your brothers and stuff. And I have that with other artists as well, and that's just the way it works.
It's very cool.
I'm not that for some other people, and that's fine. There's so much room for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I hope that you can come and do another show in Arizona again, or I can go to LA once this quarantine goes away. So
here's to the next live performance.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll just keep watching your stuff on Instagram.
Sounds good, dude.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Fahim.
Yeah, no problem. All right. I'll talk to you soon, dude.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Peace.
So funny. I want to thank Fahim yet again. I'm just very grateful that he took the time to do my podcast. Good karma for him. Check out Fahim's YouTube videos. Follow him on Instagram and Twitter. He provides a lot of really funny content. And then you can check out his stand-up special on YouTube, and his charity should be in the notes of the podcast. If you enjoyed this interview, let me know with a review, and make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss any future episodes. I got some great episodes out already and a lot more to come. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day or night if you're listening at night. And remember, just go for it. Shoot for the moon.